Welcome to Tokyosaurus. So what's up in Japan? Well, it's been a few weeks now, and I think most of you who's been playing Monster Hunter World has gotten a pretty good idea of all the monster offerings in the game. At this point, you probably slayed or captured dozens to hundreds of these monsters already, and have most likely memorized all their attack patterns, how to dodge them, their elemental weaknesses, down to their favorite places to eat and sleep. But with each new Monster Hunter game, the monster roster changes with new additions along with monsters that come back from previous generations. So what better time than now to see which new monsters from Monster Hunter World do people like the best? Again, this ranking is for the monsters newly introduced in Monster Hunter World for the first time and does not include any monsters that existed in a previous generation. So this poll was conducted on a Japanese site I have linked in the description below, so this ranking is more based on Japan's tastes. So at the end of the video, we're gonna have our own poll, so make sure you participate in that so we can see how it matches with Japan's. I assume this list contains all the new monsters in the game, so at the bottom would mean we're starting with the least popular monsters, and as we move up, we get into the more popular ones. Okay, so we're gonna start at the very bottom of this list, being number 14. And at the very bottom, we have JYURATODUS with only 1% of total votes. JYURATODUS is one of the earlier monsters we encounter, and it's not that he's especially hard or easy. I think people don't particularly like JYURATODUS because the area in which we fight him, our movement is pretty restricted. If he moves to another area, you have to trek through the mud again, and it just slows down the game. So I'm not too surprised here. At number 13, we have the Great GIRROS with 2.3%. Maybe it's cause he gives paralysis, or maybe it's cause he lives in the Rotten Vale with the annoying effluvium. Either way, not too memorable and sits right where he belongs on the ranking. Next up, we have a tie at number 11 for RADOBAAN and the Great JAGRAS. RADOBAAN has one of the more memorable designs in Monster Hunter, as he not only eats bones, he is literally a pile of bones himself. Who can forget getting rolled over all of a sudden by a RADOBAAN for the first few times while trekking the top area of the Rotten Vale? Great Jagras, on the other hand, may not have been a very interesting monster to fight, but his personal cutscene was definitely memorable as he swallows his prey whole. He definitely looked scarier than he was. At number 10, we have TZITZI with 3% of total votes. This guy is probably the most annoying one out of the bunch with the flashes he does with his head that will bring you to your knees. Although once you learn it, it's easy to get out of the way for, which makes it even more frustrating when you know it's easy to dodge and you still mess it up. Next up is PUKEI-PUKEI at number 9 with 3.2% of total votes. He is the one that pukes poison at you. Another early monster, but probably one of the more interesting fights as you not only have to avoid his pukes, but the aftermath of his puke lying all over the floor that you have to avoid while avoiding PUKEI-PUKEI himself. Next up, we have PAOLUMU at number 8 with 3.8% of the votes. PAOLUMU is actually one of my favorite new designs in Monster Hunter World, so I was sad to see him so far down the list. By his design alone, it's clear which part of the body you should probably aim for, and which part of his body you should probably stay away from. PAOLUMU is just a fun fight to do overall. Next up is Anjanath at 3.8% as well, having only 2 more votes than PAOLUMU. Anjanath is one of the first monsters revealed to us and probably one of the first walls hunters hit when going through low rank. It is also one of the first scarier looking monsters at the beginning, especially going from fighting an electric squirrel to a full-size fire-breathing T-Rex. Not too surprised with this ranking here, as many people probably have good carding memories from our dear Anjanath. At number 6, we have ZORAH MAGDAROS at 5.1%. Being one of the largest, if not the largest monster in Monster Hunter, on paper you would have expected him to be one of the more popular monsters from the new roster. But it wasn't able to hit top 5 probably because the fights themselves weren't so interesting. They were probably my least favorite quests, simply because they were not challenging at all, and just took a lot of time. Finally, going into the top 5, we have KULU at number 5 with 5.3% of total votes. He's the one who picks up boulders and other large items to protect itself from attacks, and I'm kind of surprised that KULU got ranked so high, and I don't exactly know why so many people like him, so maybe you guys can give me a hint here. Now let's get into the real heavy hitters for popularity. Shooting straight to 12.3% at number 4, we have ODOGARON. With an awesome soundtrack paired with the high difficulty of the hunt, at least for the first few times, makes ODOGARON one of the most exciting fights in the game. Not only is he extremely quick with his attacks, you are constantly afflicted with effluvium and sometimes bleeding if you're hit. I'm sure plenty of us has gotten carded by ODOGARON, which makes finally beating him feel even better. This fight is definitely one of the best highlights of Monster Hunter World for me so far. At number 3, with 12.5%, we have our electric squirrel, TOBI KADACHI. With lightning elements being one of the most useful elements in the game, plenty of us hunted TOBI KADACHIs non-stop. His design is also one of the more unique designs in Monster Hunter World, so I can see why he's all the way up at number 3. From the electric attacks to him jumping off trees in the forever confusing ancient forest, makes his fights always fun to do. And at number 2, at a staggering 18.3%, we have Legiana. He is the apex monster of the Coral Highlands and emits icy winds from his body. Looks-wise, Legiana is probably one of the most elegant monsters to be introduced in Monster Hunter and fits quite well with the Coral Highlands theme. And finally, at number 1, with 25% of all the votes, we have NERGIGANTE. The flagship monster of Monster Hunter World definitely deserves the top spot in popularity. His spikes are ever so satisfying to break off, but if left untouched long enough, they will turn black and harden. Once these spikes have hardened, they will deal more damage to hunters while also being able to repel more attacks. And as an elder dragon that actively hunts and feeds on other elder dragons, this dude is a beast. So that's it for the poll. And as you can tell, the other elder dragons were not included in this poll, but that was probably to avoid spoilers. And while many of you have finished the game, there has been rumors floating around the internet and Reddit of a new list of monsters Capcom wants to bring to the current Monster Hunter world this year that includes another 10 Elder Dragons from previous games and also G-Rank to coincide with the PC release. Whether or not that is true, Capcom has confirmed that Monster Hunter World would be receiving a good amount of free DLC and updates, and seeing how Monster Hunter World has a much bigger install base than they initially expected, I think it's safe to assume we can expect big plans for Monster Hunter World in the near future. Anyways, who is your favorite new monster in Monster Hunter World? I left the poll for you guys up there, and also let me know down in the comments below. Don't forget to drop a thumbs up before you leave, subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications if you want to be updated with the latest that's going on in Japan. And I'll see you guys in the next one.